Hoyla, what is happening? I am back and we are here to make some NBL videos. The season has just begun, so I'm going to recap every single week, pretty much try and do this on the Monday or the Tuesday whenever I get the chance. First week has happened, we've had 5 games, there's a few exhibitions. I don't know how much I can really talk about that just because I watched one of them. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the Adelaide game. I was organising dinner, doing other stuff. Watched the Sydney game, was very impressed by the Sydney Kings. My Sydney Kings right there. But let's talk about the other games. The actual NBL games actually mattered to the NBL competition. This was round 1. Let's get into it. First up, we had a Thursday night game. We had Melbourne United versus the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, and that was a great way to start the season. That was like very high energy, high value game. Melbourne look very, very dangerous right now. Like I have hopes on them. I have hopes on every single team. I had a little bit higher hopes on Melbourne, but yet I was like, maybe they're not a top 4 seed because I don't see a number 1 option on this team. Like I feel like it's very team oriented, and if they do go through their typical slag, it might hinder them, especially also missing Chris Goulding these first few rounds. That's not going to help them, but they definitely just proved me wrong. They just proved that they just chug along. They've got so much depth. It does not matter if they're missing like they're probably the most key guy, the most drawing of everybody around him to come to him, to defend him, to try to defuse what Chris Goulding can do. And they found a way to make it work, especially considering of how many like changed pieces it has been from last season, and they still look just as good. I also wrote down notes so that way I could actually talk about things and remember what happened, because it was Thursday and today is Monday, so a few days in between, but that's fine. Pretty much like the biggest takeaway I found from this game from United is the fact that Doyle's shot was struggling a lot. Like he made 7 field goals. This isn't including the free throws or anything. It was like 7 from 20 or something. It was very inefficient, but 3 of the shots were end of quarter within the last 30 seconds. That's a bit concerning if that happens often, because with Milton Doyle again, he can be very streaky at times, but when he hits the shots, you kind of forget of everything that he's done, like that he hasn't done. That was probably like one of my biggest thoughts about the game, because I didn't really see like a true scorer for Melbourne. I still haven't seen a true scorer for Melbourne yet. That is probably the one bit of concern. I know they're more of a team game. Do not expect anybody to average 20 points on Melbourne, but if Milton Doyle was meant to be your go-to scorer while Chris Goulding is out, because Chris Goulding can obviously be your number 1 scorer, he can get to like that 18 to 20 point range. Milton Doyle needs to be more efficient with his shot selection, because they more than likely could have won this game by like 10 to 15 points if he did not have that issue. But let's talk about the other 2 imports, like Jesse Edwards. Fantastic on defense. That shot blocking, that rebounding is going to be there all season long. Going to be in the conversation for DPOY. I don't know if he'll actually win it because of the opposition of like Will Magnay and John Brown, who we will get to. That man looked phenomenal, and I didn't really know what to expect from him going in. And if he keeps this up all season, what a steal by the Phoenix. But Jesse Edwards, the offense is very clunky. He is a big man who's still trying to find his footing. Like he's going to be that lob threat. He should not be dribbling the ball. He should just be catching, putting it in. Rudy Gobert, think of that. He did play with Rudy Gobert last season, so that's probably not why he's got that kind of play style, but probably not the most helpful in learning the offense from a big man. And Tyson Walker, he just feels like that two-way. He's just going to be a dog. He's going to be a two-way player, and it's looked really good for them. On the other hand, the Jack Jumpers, their main import duo of like Bryce Hamilton, David Johnson, might be the best 1-2 punch in the NBL. Like we saw what happened. Bryce Hamilton went down with I think it was a calf injury. He's gone down both games and it hasn't looked great. I mean, he did come back, but he wasn't as effective. So the ball went to David Johnson, and David Johnson was like, I'm just as good as Bryce Hamilton. And it felt like for a lot of it that he was, and it was like exciting to watch. You just saw like the high energy, like the high value that these 2 guys are going to bring to the Jack Jumpers, and it's actually going to be great to watch all season long. Like they've struggled to score over 80 points a lot in the last few years. And I think with these 2 guys, and once Josh Bannon finds his shot, because he is struggling from inside the 3, like his 3-point shot is looking good. I forget what the percentage was. I think he hit like 3 out of 5 for this game. And he was like 0 from 4 or 6 or something from inside the 3-point line, which is not what you want from your power forward. That is also going to play center minutes. But I think once that actually like once he gets the hang of his shot, once he gets into his groove and he like settles in properly with this team, I think like the 3 top scorers are going to be them 3, and it's actually going to be very efficient. It's going to look a lot better for what the Jack Jumpers have had these last few years, because since Jack McVeigh left, they haven't really had a lot of scoring punch in the front court. Will Magnay will do what Will Magnay does. He will dunk the ball if you do a nice pick and roll with him, which I think Tiger Campbell can. He just hasn't yet. That is going to be a lot more effective, and like I think their offense is going to catch up to what their defense is right now. And their defense is still looking very Jack Jumpers like, smuggling, just doing what needs to be done to get the job done. But that was Thursday night's game. Still very entertaining. They could have gone either way. I think Milton Doyle's end of quarter shots were the difference makers. If he missed 2 of those, then it would be a Jack Jumpers win. But he came in clutch, and he got 3 out of 4 of the end of quarter buzzer beaters he needed to get. And that was the difference maker. Now let's talk about the Friday night game. Let's talk about the Breakers. Let's talk about the Bullets. I have a lot of concerns about both of these teams. Let's start off with the biggest concern, which is the New Zealand Breakers and the fact that they do not look good. They really look like they are struggling. Like Parker Jackson-Kyrite, there is obviously injury concern with him, like with the ribs and everything. And then the rest of the team is just not keeping up with that. My cat is going to join me for the rest of the video, so be nice. And then we have Isaiah Brockington, who has looked really good. He pretty much is playing that Matt Mooney role that Matt Mooney played last year when PJC went down, and doing everything that he can to score the ball and do whatever he can to make this team look better than what it actually is. But the problem is they've relied too heavily on their New Zealand talent, and the New Zealand talent isn't where it used to be like 10 years ago when they originally did this. So it's all nice and everything that they try to go back to their roots because of how successful it was 10 years ago. The problem is it's a whole different generation, and you're not going to get the same, like, it's not going to be as effective as it once was, which is going to be a major concern, and they're going to struggle. Like, they looked bad the second half of last season. It does feel like they're going to look the exact same this season, and at this point I would probably just write them off right now, which is very bold because it's been one round. But unless, I don't know what you can really do like locally to fix things, because I don't think it's an import problem. I think all 3 imports are going to be very high value, very high character. Like, we know what PJC can do. We've seen what Brockington can do. Ron Baker pretty much just came in without much preparation. Like, he came playing for America less than a month ago, and then he's come straight into an NBL season. So he's going to take time to adjust. So I don't think the blame should be on any of them. It does, like, their local talent do need to hit the 3 ball a lot more. Like, that game, they hit less than 20%. That is not viable. That is not reliable. That is not what you want from your core guys. So they really need to figure that out. That's probably their biggest challenge. It was the same in the next game, but we'll probably skim through that because we've spoken about both the teams. But the Bullets, I do not have much faith in the Bullets. I think they've got a lot of inefficiencies that are trying to be covered up by the fact that they have 3 very high value imports that can do everything that they need them to do. Like, Casey Prather is very efficient. He's going to get 20 plus points a game. Javon Freeman-Liberty, once he gets in his groove, is going to score 20 plus points a game. Jalen Adams is just going to facilitate everything and keep everything calm and steady. He's probably going to average 8 to 10 assists, and all he needs to do is, he's somebody who could average over 20 points a game, but I see him probably in that 10 to 15 range just to allow the other 2 imports to shine. And then when it comes to their Aussie, like their local talent, you have Tyrell Harrison, who looked phenomenal, but he's not going to feast on the rebounds like he did every single game because of the fact that New Zealand's big men aren't as reliable. So that is going to be a wait and see kind of thing, because Tyrell Harrison did look fantastic. Like, it was like 15 rebounds. Don't know how often that's going to happen, and it's pretty much once he's off the court, who's their main rebounder? Toby Smith-Milner, who's a very plug-and-play kind of guy. He isn't tall enough to really dominate the boards when he's off. Casey Prather doesn't get rebounds. Like, a lot of their starting guys don't get rebounds, and then their bench, who they signed a lot of good young talent. I don't know how many minutes they're going to give them. I don't know how much faith Stu Lash has on these guys, and his coaching also concerns me because I don't know how much coaching he's actually going to be doing. But that's the Bullets. They did win by 9 points, and a lot of it was coming down to turnovers by the Breakers and steals and stuff, which don't know how much faith. I don't know how often they're going to be able to do this on every other team, so that's like my concern with them. Defensively, I don't think they looked phenomenal as well, but it's hard to really get a gauge on them because you've seen what the Breakers were like and what the Breakers ended up against Melbourne United. And if the Bullets were as good as United. They would have won by 20 plus as well, but they only won by less than 10. So that's not promising from the Bullets. And then we had a double header on Saturday. Let's start off with the first game of the night. Let's start off with the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, the John Brown Steel show against the Cairns Taipans, who don't have a point guard, and it is very visible, and it's an absolute struggle to watch the Taipans play offense because nobody wants to touch the ball unless they're going to shoot. But nobody has any space because there is no one facilitating anything. But let's talk about John Brown, because he was phenomenal. He was probably the player of the round, like the way that he did things. 8 steals in his first game in the NBL, should have been at least 10. Didn't really need to play much in the fourth quarter. I'll be honest, I did tune out like halfway through the fourth just because of the way the game was finished. I felt like there was not much point watching nothing happening, pretty much. But the defense as a whole for the Phoenix was actually phenomenal, like the full court press. Nathan Sobey was getting down and dirty, like he got 2 or 3 steals and 2 or 3 easy buckets because of the turnovers. They called the Titans have like 3 times the turnovers that the Phoenix had, which is going to help you win basketball games. It's going to make you look a lot better, and then pretty much just dominated every other statistic to get the job done. I don't know what else to say about the Phoenix because they were just very efficient in what they did. Like they just they relied on their defense and it created their offense, which sounds very simple, but it's not as easy to do. But the way that Josh King coaches made it look a lot more easier and a lot more doable for a lot of the other teams. But it's also hard to gauge because it was the Taipans who are very injury deprived right now. So don't want to make excuses for the Taipans for why they looked terrible, but it doesn't help when you don't have a starting point guard. It doesn't help when you pretty much don't have anything other than like shot takers. There's no self-creation. I don't think they fed the ball enough to Jack McVeigh, but when they did, he was somewhat effective. His defense is questionable right now, and I think he needs to work on that a little bit. But we will talk about the one positive, which was Rain Smith, because that shot looked so clean, and the amount of times that as soon as he had a little bit of space, he was taking that shot. I always thought that DJ Vasiljevic was going to be the next Chris Goulding to be that 3-point shot maker, but looking at Rain Smith, if he somehow doesn't get an NBA shot, he will be that guy in the NBL who's the Steph Curry shot taker that as soon as you give them a little bit of space, they are going to take that 3, and you hope and pray that it doesn't go in because that shot is so clean. He's 22 years old, so it's just going to get better as well. Not much else to talk about the Taipans because you're missing Sam Wardenberg, your import point guard who isn't going to help your facilitating, who's a scoring punch, doesn't help the playmaking aspect of things. Not the best fit, I don't think. I do think signing him was a bit more of a reaction than a planned attack because of the whole Ashton Hagans thing, which is another bit of drama that Taipan fans we don't need to get into. But that's probably your week in a nutshell. I mean, it's really hard to gauge how good you could be considering you're missing your second best player. But the Phoenix, it's actually good to see that you're a lot better. I thought the Vrenz Bleinberg thing would be a bigger concern, but you've pretty much just handled that like with absolute class and just moved on. No big deal, which is great to see. So kudos to that. And now let's talk about the next game of the night. It is the Tasmania Jackjumpers versus the Perth Wildcats. This game was clunky as hell. It was not that enjoyable to watch. Perth's offense looked terrible. It looked like there wasn't a whole lot of organization, which is something that you thought was going to happen now that it's not just pass the ball to Bryce Cotton, let him do his thing, everybody contributes. Now it's everybody contributes first, and then there's no like number one go-to scorer. It's meant to be Mason Jones, but he looked a bit like he's still getting used to the league. And I didn't think he was going to come in and just score 30 points or make these 6 threes, which he did in the preseason game, but that's a preseason game and it's really hard to value that. Probably talk more about the Perth Wildcats in this game just because of the fact that we've talked about the Jack Jumpers. They looked, they had Bryce Hamilton for the full game and he didn't have that injury concern that he had in the last game. So he obviously was able to be that offensive punch that he could, and then David Johnson just slots in nicely next to him. Again, could be the best 1-2 punch in the NBL. I am going to back that until I see somebody else overtake them in that. But let's talk about Perth's other players. First up, Ben Henshaw. He looked like he rushed too many of his shots. It didn't look that clean. I think he's trying to prove himself after withdrawing from the draft and trying to prove that he is he could be the best offensive player on the team. It's not looking good. I think it's hurting him more than anything, and he kind of needs to take a step back and pretty much recalibrate because he did this in the Boomers in the Asia Cup games, and it was noticeable that he was trying too hard to do too much when it's not really his game. He's a complementary piece. He shouldn't be trying to be that focal piece. And Dylan Windler's shots did not look good. 1 from 7 from the field. That's not what you want. A guy that's had a lot of hype, a lot of people backing him, that he's going to have that breakout year. I also was backing him, but yeah, it's not good if you're going 1 from 7. Christian Doolittle didn't take that jump that we thought he was. He's kind of playing that point forward role right now. I think that's why it was a bit more clunky as well, because you kind of need to pretty much set the barriers, set the standards on who's the main point guard, who's going to be bringing the ball up more. Is it Mason Jones? Is it Christian Doolittle? I think that's something they got to figure out as well. And then missing Sunday Dutch for this game was noticeable on the defensive end. But, you know, only allowing 75 points, usually that's a good sign, except when it's the Jack Jumpers and they will hold you to 70 points. And let's just not talk about that final play, because that was absolutely terrible, and I don't know what they were thinking or what they were even trying to do. But that was them. The Jack Jumpers, not a whole extra to say. They went in, did the job. Josh Patton, still, that shot hasn't fallen yet. Hopefully it does soon. It's just give him some time, let him pretty much get back into his groove, and then that should be fine. That's probably the only other thing that takeaway from the Jack Jumpers in this game. Also, Nick Marshall, he's looked really good. He looks like he's been a good signing. Hopefully he takes that jump. I feel like he is. He's going to end up being like that more 6th or 7th man in the lineup compared to... Actually, I think he's kind of there now, but I feel like it's more solidified. Him and Ben Air, like that's like the first 2 people off the bench, I think is good. Majuk Dang as well. I think the Jack Jumpers could have like a really solid bench rotation that is can be definitely moved around in and out and still work fantastic. That's probably like a good takeaway for all the Jack Jumpers right now. And now let's talk about the final game of the weekend. Let's talk about the Breakers and United. I'm sorry, Breakers. It's been a very rough week for you. I don't really want to say too much. The game was pretty much over after the first quarter when you were down by 20. Parker Jackson Cartwright left the court and didn't come back. That's never a good sign. Hopefully it's just precautionary reasons and they're just like, let's just call it a game. Come back next week. Figure out a bit of plan and go from there. Sam Menenga also missed the game due to I was going to say HIA, it's not NRL. Concussion protocols. Fair enough. It is what it is. United, you showed your depth. Tom Wilson looks like a proper NBL player now, which is fantastic. Like the 3-point shot looks good. The shot making looks good. It looks like he's going to be coming in more of that backup point guard role when needed, which I think is really good for him and his growth. And Dash Daniels, he has looked phenomenal. Like he's 17 years old and he's looking like a real NBL player, which is I think the biggest takeaway, like the biggest plus for you right now, because you've got this young kid who a lot of people thought, oh, he can come in and do the defensive stuff and he should be fine with a lot of the guards, but he's actually proving his value on offense as well, which is nice and helpful for United. So that's a good sign, and that's probably like all that really needs to be said, because it was hard to concentrate on this game when you're up by like 40 points and it's just like, oh yep, they scored again, oh yep, they scored again, oh yep, they scored again. But that's probably about it. Breakers fans, hopefully it does get better. I do not want to say that it will though. Anyway, that's my takeaways from the week. With my predictions as well, that is still going to do a thing. I went 2 from 5. Wasn't the best week. Again, this year is going to be so hard to predict, but we will see how we go. Thank you all for watching, and if there's anything else that you want me to make for like NBL kind of content, let me know in the comments. I will see you all next time.